Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Speaking today, we have Sep de Meer, who is the Director of Sales at Averna for Western Europe, along with Tom Limmerkins, one of Averna's experts in test and automation. Before we begin, I would like to inform everyone that you'll be automatically muted, but we'll be answering questions near the end of our webinar. And with that in mind, let's begin.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sep de Meer. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to speak with everyone today. I've been working within quality and automation for over 10 years now, having started as a project engineer back in 2009. I went over to the dark side of sales in 2011, and I worked my way up from there. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, Tom Limmerkins. So, Tom, can you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Of course, Seb. I've been with Averna since 2006, holding multiple roles in leadership and engineering. Today, I'm the director of our dedicated customer solutions team. This exposes me to all of our customers' test challenges, and together with our team of dedicated architects, we design efficient quality solutions that match their business needs.
Thanks, Tom. So we're both looking forward to sharing the trends we've been seeing with regards to medical testing. Companies are changing their processes and looking for new ways to improve product quality and remain competitive. Obviously, today it's a demanding time for the industry. So today we want to focus on the changes that we see are being implemented from R&D to manufacturing and how they are affecting product quality. But first, I will take a quick introduction to Averna as a global expert in test, measurement, and automation. Next, we'll look at the trends as we are seeing them in the medical industry, particularly in light of the effects of COVID-19. And then we will go over specific changes our customers are implementing. This applies to both product development and manufacturing, and we will review the effects these measures are having on the output quality and manufacturing productivity. Finally, I'll open the floor for any questions you may have. So Averna is a system integration provider in the test and quality market. To support our global client base, we have 9 locations worldwide. Our corporate headquarters is located in Montreal, Canada, which was founded in 1999. But today, we have offices across Europe, including the Netherlands, Belgium, and Poland. We also have 2 offices in the United States on the East Coast and on the West Coast, a build-to-print facility in Mexico, and an office in Japan with additional support coverage in China, Taiwan, and South Korea. And while this webinar is dedicated to the medical industry, the other 80% of our projects are in the other markets, including transportation, consumer electronics, and energy, to name just a few. Test is a requirement everywhere these days. So over the last 20 years, we've been exposed to a broader view on test, manufacturing, and quality processes. This experience allows us to adapt best practices between the industries. As an example, we often see the consumer electronics industry as an early adopter for cutting-edge innovations, which only later get applied in the more regulated markets, such as the life sciences. Having these insights and hands-on experience has allowed Averna to remain ahead of the technology curve. So here is a good summary of our complete capabilities as a system integrator. Averna offers solutions that range from Industry 4.0 consulting services, over prototyping, semi and fully automated test solutions, all the way to asset replication services. The majority of our business consists of designing, building, and deploying test and manufacturing assets to our customers' facilities. In order to develop our solutions, we have more than 300 in-house engineers spread over various areas of expertise. They cover every aspect of test, and that gives our customers confidence in meeting compliance regulations and, for instance, providing and executing IQ, OQ, and PQ protocols. So that's the general introduction of Averna as a company. Tom, let's take a closer look at the industry trends happening today.
Yes, Seb. So the quality process for medical process products have always been more specific and stringent than other industries. Obviously, the health impact on the end user is the key consideration, but depending on the product being manufactured, the quality requirements shift a great deal. For example, any device designed to be implanted in a person not only requires flawless quality, but long product lifetime as well. This is completely contrary to disposable syringes, where mass manufacturing must produce exact replicas of the product. Additionally, technologies are advancing quickly, and what was once impossible for medical applications has now become very commonplace. 20 years ago, the concept of a wearable heart monitor that also tracks your steps and sleep patterns was unthinkable. The RF capabilities simply were not available in an approved way. The fears of privacy invasion, safety concerns, high power consumption, incompatibility with other devices, and RF interference put a stop to any major development in wireless communication for medical devices. With the lower cost and increased safety of Bluetooth Low Energy, or BLE, the commercial market opened up and created a huge demand. The public now has access to hundreds of new healthcare devices and are constantly looking for improvements and upgrades. Compliance standards need to be developed and evolve alongside the technology itself. This falls to manufacturers who must adapt quickly to remain in line for release.
So today we are forced to ask, what is the overall and lasting effect of the global pandemic on the medical industry? We have quickly learned that the way the supply chain was working was not sufficient to accommodate an emergency. Speed has become paramount, which is a relatively new priority for the community. So how can medical manufacturers ramp up quickly to meet extreme volume increases without sacrificing quality? Today, this applies to device makers like ventilator manufacturers and pharma companies, but tomorrow this may affect a different branch of life sciences. The key is being prepared for any possible scenario to avoid history repeating itself. Tom, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, flexibility needs to play a role. New suppliers need to step up and compliance must be granted faster. This can be a precarious line to walk with the potential risk that can come in medical manufacturing. So while quality remains the #1 concern within the medical industry, COVID-19 has forced speed into the equation as well. This means that more liberties are being granted as far as compliance issues are concerned. The US Food and Drug Administration, also known as the FDA, has been issuing emergency use authorizations. These EUAs allow devices like ventilators to be released much more quickly without going through the standard compliance protocols that would have been necessary a year ago, thus potentially sacrificing quality, as proven with several EUA product recalls already.
So now we have learned it is vital to make changes in the way manufacturing is running and what works best for both product and your business. Today, our goal is to show everyone not only how to maintain but improve product quality and accelerate production to meet the increase in demand. Having been exposed to hundreds of businesses and thousands of projects, the next slides represent what we know to be the most effective method to do both and to offer the highest return on investment. These are automation, standardization, data management, and outsourcing. So Tom, please tell us a bit more on our first way to achieve higher quality, automation.
Yeah, admittedly, this won't be surprising to the most of you, but the benefits of what automating tests brings to the medical process are enormous. It is truly the backbone to total reliability and consistency. There are certainly times when manual labor can suffice, such as low volume and low complexity manufacturing, but the medical industry relies on flawlessness and repeatability to meet compliance standards and treat patients safely. These things are just more challenging when relying on manual interactions. First, a major benefit that automation can bring is the ability to continue working while processes run unattended. This simplifies the allocation of personnel, allowing them to focus on their primary objective, and makes running production 24/7 that much easier. When testing the longevity or durability of a product, often it's best to just start it and walk away. For example, one of our clients was in the process of designing a new spinal implant, and they were still in the R&D phase and trying to decide on the best material. The station we designed recreated different human movements using different forces. It would do this over and over for hours. The process was not only able to continue overnight, accelerating product development tremendously, but also allowed operators to do other tasks requiring more thought. Automated visual inspection is an example of test automation that is becoming more prevalent in the medical industry as part of the required quality screening. Machine vision detects flaws invisible to the human eye at incredibly high speeds for multiple units simultaneously. Results are based entirely on predefined settings, leaving no room for questions or opinion. When the same task is performed manually, specially trained technicians work on one item at a time, sometimes needing a microscope and often needing to stop and refocus. It can be a long, tedious, and expensive process, with the results remaining subjective to the operator on duty. Additionally, automated processes require no further training. Once the system is operational, it's all systems go. Whereas in manual labor, it involves an expensive training, periods for complicated processes, ramp up, and unfortunately, on a turnover, that restarts the whole process. If an operator misunderstands any of the requirements, that adds a layer of risk that can easily be overlooked and send bad product out to the field. Machine vision offers a combination of precision and speed that is impossible to achieve by humans alone.
I agree, Tom. Flawless execution applies to all means of automation for perfect results. By automating electronics testing, a system easily achieves human parity, but continues working independently. This accelerates the speed of manufacturing in different ways. Technicians become liberated to focus elsewhere while the system performs simple verifications. Additionally, by automating test processes, all test data is automatically gathered and organized for simplified documentation. Robotics handling is another technology that is growing within the medical industry, delivering better and faster assembly. With components of subassemblies getting smaller, they become more difficult to manipulate. So there has been an impressive growth in the capabilities of robotic arms, and they have become faster and more consistent than what can be performed by a human technician. At the end of the day, well-designed products need to be assembled as intended. Products with smaller components can be challenging and time-consuming to build to spec. Automated systems are designed to do just that with the help of cameras, sensors, and robotics. Automation also offers the ability to multitask. As we will show you shortly in the next slide, automating tests allows multiple tasks to be performed simultaneously without sacrificing the quality. The same applies to validating many units under test at the same time. By doing more at the same time, the speed of manufacturing increases significantly. In the end, working in parallel is always better and more efficient than sequentially. Tom, can you please clarify this?
Yeah, here's a great example of a system designed to perform multiple validations simultaneously. Reusable auto-injectors like EpiPens are built in two parts, an applicator to administer the medicine and a disposable insert containing the medication for single use. Our client required a solution to validate the quality of the production batch for the disposable insert. This could only be done by performing a destructive sample test that was able to validate if the syringe cap can be removed simply for patients with limited use of joints. They also wanted to control the syringe and measure the needle depth to ensure that the needle was inserted into the right tissue layer. They also want to ensure that all the medicine that has been ejected from the insert, and finally to monitor the dosing time, as the application of the medicine can be painful for the patient if it's applied too quickly. Based on all these requirements, we designed an automated test system to simulate the reusable applicator in a hands-free, clean environment. The system has the following overall flow for the process. So first, a needle shield is removed from the insert, performing a force and a distance measurement, uncovering the needle. And the next steps are all done simultaneously to gain speed. Cameras with the appropriate lighting and lens system measure the needle length before the dosing cycle begins. A motion control system then moves the plunger actuator and mimics the applicator by applying the correct speed force profile. At the same time, the camera also measures the dosing time and verifies that all medicine has cleared the needle tip at the end of the dosing. A vibration actuator on the insert will release any droplets from the needle tip if required. Finally, the plunger retracts. The plunger actuator retracts and the total volume is verified by a scale. Once complete, the system verifies the safety needle shield is reapplied correctly and takes the appropriate next steps based on the results. For insert identity verification, the insert parameters are read from the RFID tag, and the RFID tag is then marked as, on the insert as used for testing. By having these tasks performed together on the same station, we are able to perform an exact simulation of the reusable applicator while gathering highly accurate measurements in a continuous process. All the data is automatically logged and easily tracked back. The results are consistent and completely reliable for both patient safety and comfort.
Thank you, Tom. So I understood that the drive to automation is fueled by our customers' need for flawlessness and repeatability, And by doing it properly, they gain a production environment that is thoroughly validated, reliable, efficient, and quality assured. So let's move on to our second way of improving quality and accelerate manufacturing, and that is standardization. You see, standardizing is not always looked at as a means to accelerate production, but it is in fact a major factor. By standardizing test equipment, there are the obvious benefits, including flexibility and future-proofing. And don't get me wrong, these are incredibly important for the total cost of operations. The ability to reuse the same equipment across multiple form factors and product lines not only maximizes the value of the initial investment, but also minimizes operator training. Having the same equipment company-wide with the same look and feel gives an employee the ability to follow the same procedures regardless of their work location. This saves everyone time and minimizes inconsistencies from factory to factory. And time savings is not the time saving is not limited to training. Product requirements will always become more and more complex. Therefore, manufacturing processes will need to adapt to handle this. There will rarely be an off-the-shelf solution to cover the extensive quality requirements dictated by the industry. Customized solutions address this need by standardizing the design. It will allow the user to be agile and grow along with the ever-changing requirements. By reusing the same platform, test development time is also significantly reduced when introducing new products. With standardized and flexible test equipment, growth and expansion is generally achieved with minor hardware and software tweaks. This allows a business to constantly reuse the same equipment as companies continue to innovate, lowering the total cost of ownership, even if the base equipment may cost a little more. So here is an example of a standardized test solution for something as simple as a battery, or at least that's what most of us think when thinking of a battery, if it were not that these batteries are specially designed for portable defibrillators. So these devices can provide an electric shock to a patient when their heart is beating in an irregular rhythm, or maybe not beating at all. So when talking about when quality matters. As I go over it, you'll see that there are recurring themes. So in this case, we designed a more reliable and simpler test solution to validate the quality of the battery used in these portable defibrillators. The customer was facing a lot of recalls and was losing massive amounts of time and money managing that product. They wanted a system that would be optimized for high throughput, but with all flexibility to accommodate multiple battery types and future products, while still remaining scalable to support many stations in multiple locations and able to perform self-testing to ensure reliability. So based on their needs, we custom designed a system with a coverless fixture. It included 4 hybrid nests to support lot testing for multiple form factors. As a result, now they are able to easily switch between product types and perform parallel test sequencing. Essentially, a finalized unit under test, or UUT, is verified every 5 seconds to remain in line with the speed of their manufacturing takt time. The tests themselves include a 5 to 12 volt DC open and closed circuit voltage, or OCV and CCV, temperature test, leakage current, and more. This is achieved with minimal operator intervention. It is as simple as loading the machine. As quality was their main concern, we put a heavy focus on mistake proofing and self-testing features. All actions and results are automatically logged for and simple documentation, saving countless hours for both manufacturing and support. By selecting a standardized base kit with swappable fixtures, any operator can step in and take over testing neatly, regardless of the product. As I mentioned earlier, this solution accommodates the 2 battery types the defibrillator uses today, but it also is designed to make room for any changes to future product design. Our customer not only has the security of a totally reliable product, but has accelerated their production line with parallel testing and minimal operator intervention, regardless of the UUT. Combination of automation and standardization also allows for a more efficient IQ, OQ, PQ process. Plus, standardization gives us another underappreciated key benefit, which is standardized data.
Yes, indeed, Seb. Data has become one of the most valuable commodities in manufacturing. To begin with, results and their documentation were always a key component to the medical field, but it is the proper organization of data and traceability that will prove if a product performs to the compliance standards. The automation of the collection and organization of this data directly from manufacturing assets is reliable, accurate, and fast. With the right tools to manipulate the data, engineers can spend their time focusing on the projects and process development instead of essentially wasting it due to poor traceability for the required documentation. This data then can be used to isolate the issues that arise. The proper data management tools will demonstrate where the root cause comes from. By understanding if the issue is due to product design, supplier issue, the manufacturing process, or the test solution itself, teams can quickly begin working at a resolution. Additionally, the data that's being collected is communicating more than just the UUT information. It will also disclose the status of the manufacturing floor itself. Patterns emerge from manufacturing assets and demonstrate shift in behavior. By processing this data and acting on it, preventive maintenance can be scheduled at convenient times and avoid dangerous and expensive shutdowns. A fine example for this, for instance, is with our customer Space Labs Healthcare. They were under pressure to maximize the long-term value of their test equipment. They called on Averna because of our RF and automation expertise. By leveraging our experience, we were able to cover all their requirements. This included providing full coverage for multiple products and technologies like RF and electrical, while accommodating different types of testing from the bare components to the final assembly. We replaced manual testing with automated routines and future-proofed the test stations to protect their investment over the long term. What we ended up delivering included 10 different standalone test stations, each with custom fixtures to accommodate different products. They're all fully automated and offer parallel testing to accelerate their production line. The flexible test architecture allows them to perform modifications and updates at their discretion with simple operator GUIs. But most importantly, each of these test stations is running ProLegend Analytics for automated test data management, web reports, and analytics. ProLegend Analytics provides a centralized database that streamlines all test and manufacturing data. Employees automatically receive a multi-dimensional view of the data, enabling engineers to quickly drill down to examine the test results based on criteria such as components, assemblies, batches, or vendors. Countless hours were saved by removing the manual collection and organization of this information. Additionally, by summarizing this data into detailed reports or simplifying it into intuitive dashboards, engineers and decision makers are better positioned to make educated choices. As a result, product quality and asset utilization were optimized and supply chain activities run uninterrupted. It was a complete revamp of their test process. The value they receive from the consolidation of their data allows them to make game-changing business decisions much faster, supported by actual facts and insights.
So Tom, we've talked about automation to ensure uniformity, output speed, and high quality. We spoke about standardization to make sure we can scale our processes and remain flexible for future product changes. And then we discussed smart data management, which provides us with factual insights to streamline our decision making. That just leaves our last way to improve quality, and that is outsourcing.
Yes, Seb, that's correct. This point alone can be the main driver in speeding up production while quality continually improves. I'm making the assumption that anyone that has joined this webinar is looking for new ways to look outside of the box for their product. At the end of the day, no one will understand your product the way you do. By outsourcing other aspects of product development, like test and measurement or component testing in manufacturing, this gives engineers the freedom to focus on improvements of the actual product and processes and try new things. By engaging a team dedicated to quality, their experience alone is an asset that can't be easily be mimicked. The exposure to different applications and test methods ensure the test processes will be thorough and efficient. For example, we recently were engaged by a medical company in Israel who was in the process of developing a new product, but the quality was not up to their standards. After a lot of trial and error and lost time, they called on us to simply come in and evaluate their setup and determine where the holes in their process were. So just by focusing on the primary target, more gets accomplished. Cost is generally the main concern preventing companies from outsourcing. At the end of the day, it needs to be worthwhile, and while already having a dedicated group of engineers on board, it can come across as an unnecessary expense. In reality, however, we see that more often than not, companies save money quickly by contracting out to an experienced group, investing time into evaluating the true and hidden costs of tests. Comparing those to the cost of outsourcing is time well spent. So there's another great example of the impact of outsourcing has on product development. This was a newer customer who was in the process of developing a revolutionary continuous glucose monitoring sensor, which is yet to be released on the market. They received a grant from their government to move forward with R&D, but it was contingent on meeting specific deadlines within the product development. In general, this meant that they needed to move faster. This in turn required a more efficient way to take and log measurements throughout the product evolution. Working together and combining our expertise in test and automation together with their expertise of their own product, we developed a system to exactly mimic the human body and its reactions to varying levels of glucose and oxygen. This was done in a controlled temperature environment where glucose is injected into a set fluid and slowly increased over the course of 8 hours without further operator involvement. Data measurements and sensor interactions between the glucose and the test system are tracked, logged, and pre-formatted for further evaluation by their group of engineers. When comparing the data received from the test station to the manual processes they were working with prior, the results were received much more quickly, far more accurate and repeatable. The platform that has been created in this first setup will now evolve into an actual production test system for large-scale production. Banking on the standardization this customer has, all the tools he needs to scale up his testing capability when he needs it and keep track of his product evolution while it gets finished by the R&D team. All of this was accomplished by inserting the Averna engineers into their development team. By outsourcing to dedicated test engineers, they gained access to hundreds of specialties, including optical, mechanical, and electrical engineering. It was this know-how that not only allowed them to develop the measurement system they needed, but also kept their own engineers focused on product development. Additionally, with both companies having global locations, all teams were able to work in sync across multiple time zones. The US teams were able to pick up where the European teams left off at the end of their workday.
We said it earlier, but it's worth repeating. The standards imposed in life sciences are the most stringent and hardest to attain compared to any other industry. While the industry is changing, particularly today, it is more important and more difficult to stay focused on quality. With new technologies consistently being introduced and the need to remain competitive always looming, focus is being pulled in different directions. Additionally, the need to ramp up manufacturing because of COVID-19 is critical, and quality can't be the factor that is sacrificed. It is important to ensure the manufacturing process, and the test in particular, is evolving with the world. The products you design are the most important devices available and have the greatest impact. By automating and standardizing your test and inspection equipment, by properly and efficiently managing your test data results, and by outsourcing the aspects of your business that may not be your niche, it is certain your company will achieve the manufacturing goals while seeing huge improvement in quality and meeting all required validations.
Seth, Tom, thank you for your time today. We have already received a few questions here, and if anyone else has any questions, please go ahead and ask them in the chat box, and we'll try to answer everything. So the first question we have is, do you have any experience with artificial intelligence integration and deep learning, and what are the results that you've been seeing?
We have some cases where we used it. We apply especially deep learning in the past already on images and automated vision inspections. And for those inspections, we have a fairly good result. What we are also doing is applying the data to the AI algorithms and the deep learning algorithms on data that is collected from those test stations. And we can also see a good correlation there, and we see a lot of future benefit coming there. What we do have to notice is that using the AI information in a medical process is something that takes a little bit more attention, because we need to make sure that we can validate the data correctly according to the risk analysis that we need to do in a medical validation process.
Yeah, I would say that it's very interesting technology, this, and it's certainly up and coming. You see many players that are still developing algorithms, and so as Tom mentioned, it's a challenge to use in the medical projects, but it's definitely something up and coming.
Perfect. Our next question is, how has COVID affected your business and your support system?
Yeah, that's a good question. So as all of you, also we have been, I would say, impacted by COVID. So we have taken preemptive measures. I think like most of you, we were lucky to have a good backlog to keep the engineers working as normal for as long as possible. And we did do some scale downs in our expenses, but without, I would say, without interfering with the actual product quality and the output quality of our projects. So yeah, we at the moment we still are in good position, and we have used our scale. So we have a global footprint. We did try to relocate manufacturing to some locations with lower exposure to COVID, and that has allowed us to deliver our projects on time to our customers up until now. So now we're managing.
And maybe also a technical way that we are managing the COVID. So because of the travel restrictions, we have applied new technology like augmented reality, like virtual reality to support our customers in the field and support their local engineers inside of their manufacturing. So even while we are not able to travel, we are still supporting our customers on site to make sure their production lines keep up and running. And yeah, support and even help them install new equipment to ramp up their capacity in this time. So.
Great. I had a few questions here, actually. Can you speak to the FDA EUA product recalls?
Yeah. So as we mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, in the industry trends, we see that the FDA has lowered the standards for certain medical devices. So for instance, when the need was high for ventilators, they opened up, they lowered the standard for any company to basically put a ventilator into the market. And that has, of course, that was due to the need for speed. We needed those ventilators, so we couldn't go through the full medical process, basically. So I guess we see that some companies have taken several shortcuts, and that's also why in this webinar we focus so much on quality, because the downside of taking shortcuts is that product is not fully tested, is failing in the field. And for instance, ventilators, you really don't want to be the patient that has a failing ventilator by the bedside. So we do see that happening, and we have seen recalls due to the lower regulations. But yeah, we needed to have that freedom, or companies needed to have that freedom to increase the speed. But that's also the focus of the webinar, is if you think ahead, if you have all the automation and the standardization in place, if you have access to an outsourcing bench that you can rapidly use when needed, then you are more able to quickly produce the product you want while keeping up the quality of the product. So that's always important when talking about medical devices.
Perfect. Our next question is, what measures do you take to ensure that your testers are producing good results? You know that they're accurate.
Yeah, of course, we have the full V&V process that we follow to release a tester to the customer. So we look from the full specifications all the way to the development, the design, and testing all of those implementations during the build and the integration of the station. So that's the basic process that we apply for all medical projects. From a technical point of view, what we supply typically with a tester is also a self-test fixture. So to make sure that, once you test the product, you have to make sure that the tester is working. So who's testing the tester? So we apply automated or self-test fixtures with those testers to validate before and after each batch that to make sure that the tester has been working throughout the batch that has been tested. And then typically what we do for acceptance procedures is to gauge R&R procedures to validate if the measurements are complying to the standards that are required. That's a couple of examples that we do to apply those to make sure that we have those qualitative results on our side.
Thank you. We have one last question here, and then we'll wrap it up for the day. Keeping customer data GDPR compliant while collecting data for clinical evaluation. This can be supported by Averna?
Averna supplies testers and test equipment. What we make sure is we test the equipment that gets to the patients. Typically, Averna itself does not test patients directly, so we do not test patients directly, but it's the responsibility for our customers. So our customers supply the devices to the patients and the patient data. It is our customers that are responsible for GDPR compliance. What we can test is if the identification part of the patient and the data itself, if it can be separated enough to be stored anonymously during in the stations itself or in the units. So that is something that can be part of a test protocol, but it's not typical part of our design phase. But so we can support customers in developing tests that can test this requirement specifically, but it's not something that is typically part of our test stations.
Great, thank you, Tom. And thank you to everyone who joined us today for the webinar. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to the contact information you see in front of you. Thank you very much, everybody.